This week, a young man struggles to decipher the meaning behind the hints, so he doesn't know when to make the first move. Should that always be on him? And later, a listener gets nervous as the talking phase of a long distance situation nears its end. Welcome to the talking phase. Hello and welcome to the Talking Phase podcast. My name is Tom. I am so excited for today's show. We have an incredibly fun conversation planned based on an argument Pam and I had over the weekend. And I just love it when crap comes up in real life and bleeds over into the podcast. One other thing, we are recording a little bit early because this episode is going to drop while Pam is having first world problems in France, enjoying her time in France. And so, Pam, tell us, how are things going as you prepare for the trip of a lifetime for most of us?
Is it the trip of a lifetime? I've talked a lot about on this podcast that Nikki and I, that's my daughter, have a travel page on Instagram. It's Mother and Daughter Abroad on Instagram. If you're not already following us, you should be, because we post a ton of bloopers while we're traveling abroad. So I think this is our 5th trip abroad since we started the Instagram page. We do a lot of domestic travel and post that on the same page. But I think we're getting better at it. We started using tours and now I say we are doing it on our own, but there's really no we in this team. Nikki does all the planning. If I'm 100% honest, I generally don't even know what we're doing in these places until I get there. So it's kind of like a surprise. And all she really does is give me very firm instructions that I must look cute. So she'll say, listen, I need you to have like 4 or 5 really cute outfits. And we're doing a photo shoot by the Eiffel Tower as part of a partnership with a photographer that lives in Paris. So you need a special outfit for this. And so last night we had like an hour to kill in between the finale of Love is Blind and The Bachelorette. Oh, yeah, it was reality.
The struggle is real.
And I said, listen, if you want me to quote unquote look cute, you need to get up right now. Let's go into the closet and let's decipher Nikki's version of cute. And so that's what we did. We spent about 45 minutes to an hour mapping out 12 to 15 day outfits and 12 to 15 night outfits. So now the real goal is to get them under 50 pounds for the suitcase.
So 24 to 30 outfits?
Well, don't say it like that. Yeah, I mean, and that includes like, we're going, the first 3 days is in Paris, and the week after that is in Nice. So you also need really cute cover-ups for your bathing suits. So it's a much bigger packing job than usual, but it's going to be really hot. At first, we had kind of some warm temperatures in the day and cool temperatures at night, and that makes it more complicated because we've done that. You need to have jeans, boots, and sun outfits. And so for this trip, we have pretty much all 80s all the time. So yes, I would say a 12-day trip, you need choices. So 15-day outfits and 15-night outfits, and then 7 pairs of shoes is what I've narrowed it down to 7 pairs of shoes.
The joys of not being a woman have never been more evident than right now.
You're not even kidding. They just put a law in that all of your toiletries that are liquid, like your foundations, your toners, all of these things that women need, also now need to fit into I don't remember the dimensions of the plastic bag. And we use this bag when we travel. You can see through it and you put all your stuff in there. But you can throw other things into a regular plastic bag because they don't all fit in there. And so starting September 1st, everything needs to fit into the very small bag if you're going to take it as a carry-on. And if you're a woman, you're taking all of your makeup, medications, toiletries that you can't live without into the airplane with you. You're not letting that stuff get checked. So yeah, it's overwhelming. I'm completely overwhelmed every single time we travel abroad, and then we get there and knock on wood, everything turns out fine.
Well, of course. Yeah.
Yes. Well,
I mean, if
I don't know about of course,
you wouldn't keep going.
Well, that's not true. Even if things didn't work out great, we'd probably do it again. We're kind of gluttons for punishment that way.
There you go.
But it's nice having my own tour guide there. So I am very excited to get there. So that's pretty much my week this week. And what about your week? What's going on over there in Atlanta? Hot Atlanta.
Well, before I get to what's going on here, because we're recording this early, it's kind of the timeline's a little bit off for when we're dropping this
Ah,
episode. But just this last week, for everybody who's been listening, it was Pam's birthday last week.
that's true. It
And
was.
2 days later, it was her daughter's birthday. So I decided to fly over to Raleigh and kind of hang out with Pam and her family to kind of wish them a happy birthday. I will be blunt and say this is the first time I've ever attended a birthday party with a friend that Pam is and her ex-husband. So Pam's ex-husband joined the party and he's just part of the family. I mean, he's, her daughter's dad, so he's just part of the family. And I got to tell you, that is just a testament to how nice you are, Pam.
I try. It's not always easy when you're dealing with, people that you've been married to that you're no longer married to, but it's in the best interest for our family. And, Nikki's dad is just a very kind, loving human being. Maybe he wasn't so much that when we were married because we fought all the time. We were only married for 5 minutes, so like 2 years, maybe 3. So we've been divorced for 27 years now. So we have fallen into a very comfortable friendship, and he is part of the family now.
Yeah. I mean, I've been divorced from my first wife for a very long time, but if she ever said she wanted to come to one of my, celebration with me, she could, what have I been saying about she could suck it.
Yeah, no, I think I am not the norm. Zach's dad is also somebody that I consider a good friend. I can't imagine a world where Nikki's dad, Zach's dad, and you are all at those dinners or anywhere, but I can't honestly say that realistically would never happen because that's always been my goal, is to not have the kids have to choose between one parent or another.
I'm sure I'm sure Zach's dad's a nice guy. I mean,
They're both good guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was glad to have you.
Guy. Yeah, it was fun. Other than that, big stuff happening at work all the time that never ends. Got some new roles. We got new partners. We've got huge changes coming, but lots of fun. There's going to be a ton of travel coming up. Oh, so I shouldn't have said that after the fun. The travel is not the fun part, but I love my job. So, one of the things that's going to be pretty exciting is that by the time this episode drops, Brian and I will probably be working even more closely together than we do now. Thinking of Brian, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing quite well. Thanks for asking. Yeah, I've been busy as well with work, much like Tom. He and I work together. So what's busy for Tom is usually busy for me. But yeah, other than that, just life. I got Wiggles, by the way, the Wiggles nonstop in my head, just playing over and over again, which, by the way, it's not because I like listening to the Wiggles. That's just my daughter's go-to. Every night we watch the Wiggles. Days. They're still going, by the way. The Wiggles have been going for 30 years.
And fun fact, drop.
Fun fact, Anthony Blue Wiggle and the guy who played Captain Feathersword are still there. They are in their mid-60s and they are still wiggling. It's crazy.
It's like rock bands. The 80s are still here today too. Nobody's going peacefully into the good night.
Wow. That's I don't even know who you're talking about.
You don't know who the Wiggles are?
No, I somehow dodged that bullet.
That's like not knowing who Barney is.
I do know who Barney is, but I'm also very fortunate that none of my kids really enjoyed Barney. So I never had to deal with that either.
I love that guy. I didn't love him. I mean, annoying as anything, but like loved being able to put him on and have my kids just both be very quiet. And, I was thinking, you mentioned that you and Brian are going to be working closer. Does Brian know that you bought the whip, that whip you showed me this weekend? You bought it in Raleigh?
Yeah, that's how I motivate people, is whipping them. So
I just didn't know if you knew about the whip or even the paddle board. I thought those are things that maybe were a secret and you didn't want him to know.
Where do you think you got the recommendation from? Was
I see. I forget that you like those things, so it's not really threatening. So good on you guys.
That's awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, guys, before we get into the argument and the subject that we're going to be talking about, I do want to ask everybody out there that hasn't done so already, if you just take a minute, if you like what you're hearing right now, please take a minute and rate and review the Talking Phase podcast on whatever app you're using to hear us right now. Make sure you're sharing this with your friends and family. I think that and we have some very loyal listeners out there, and we love you all. even if you're not that loyal, but we hope that you become that loyal. But we love y'all. And I think it's really great, the communication that we have from you and everything. But if you can, please just take a second, rate and review us so that we can keep growing our little Talking Phase family. So with that, I want to tell you guys, we got in this, it wasn't an argument, by the way, between Pam and me necessarily, although we definitely disagreed.
No way.
Yeah.
Things
So,
were heated.
Yeah, they did get a little heated. It was interesting. Like I said, I flew out to Raleigh to help Pam celebrate her birthday along with her daughter. And so we were driving with Nikki and Adam, her daughter and her boyfriend. And they were telling us about a friend of theirs who, and I might get this story a little bit wrong, but it's okay. This friend of Adam's recently broke up with his girlfriend. I believe it was his first serious relationship. So he's just started dating again. And he's on the dating apps, which of course everybody, has their opinion of that. And I think they suck. But anyway, he's matched with several girls. And they're younger, so I'll call them girls, even though they probably think they're women.
Late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah, so he's matched with a bunch of girls, but he's chatting with them. He's having a talking phase, if you will. But for whatever reason, he hasn't asked them out. He doesn't ask them out. He just keeps on chatting. Now, so Pam's daughter, Nikki, said, why doesn't he ask him out? And Adam and I both were saying, well, why should it be up to him? If the girls like him, it's 2024, for God's sake. Why can't they ask him out? And it was Nikki's position, and I think Pam's, and I'm not going to try and put words in Pam's mouth, but it was certainly Nikki's position, where she said, the fact that these girls are showing him any interest should be enough, and he should know that it's his job to ask the girls out.
I'm not sure she said job, but
with responsibility, role, whatever,
it's on him, I guess.
It's on him,
right?
So that the quite a debate ensued.
Yeah,
my position was and is, like I said, for God's sake, it's 2024. Why is it still the man's responsibility to make the first move? So Pam, go.
Why not?
Well, okay. Episode over. Now, if you've liked this episode.
All right. So, I mean, the crux of this for me, it goes back. And I think I talk a lot about being old fashioned and old school and saying that I wish things had never changed. I wish that dating apps had never existed. I think that the world was a much better place when single people were forced to go outside of their homes to meet people in person, strike up a conversation, see if they felt any physical chemistry, and so on. And so I said in the car that night that I feel it's partially my fault that, and we got into talking about their relationship and their talking phase. And, he was under the impression that she had actually made the first move on a few different occasions very early on, probably in the first few weeks of them talking and having met for the first date. And I said that she would drop hints like, oh, so how does your week look? Or what are you doing this week? What do you have going on? And that was just her way of trying to motivate him to ask her out on another date. She not seemingly, she was always waiting for him to ask her out on another date. And if there was a part of her that was thinking maybe I should ask him out, I said it was my fault that she didn't follow through with that, because I come from a generation where if they wanted to, they would, generally falls on the man. And I have encountered many men, even in this era, in my 50s of dating, that if you show them too much attention too quickly, they're just not that interested. Doesn't matter if they find you to be attractive, if they like the conversation. I've always been a big believer that men like the chase as much as the catch. And most of my relationships have started with somebody chasing me and me allowing them to catch me. And so I would give her the advice to wait for him to ask her out, to be a little less available. But in hindsight, after that conversation, he wouldn't have needed that and didn't want that at all. But that is where I stand. And I stand there pretty firmly. I know it's 2024. I know we are all capable of asking on these dating apps. You're talking to somebody for a few days, they haven't asked you out. I could very well say to somebody, hey, so, do you want to just keep texting or do you want to get together? And maybe they'd say yes, and maybe they'd say no. But in my case, in my story, I feel that the possibility for a good relationship is higher if the man at least asks you out on the first date.
Well, okay
dramatic
then.
pause. Dramatic pause.
No, for me, I think it's interesting that you put that prediction on there, that you have a better chance at a good relationship if the man asks first. And that was where the pause came from. I'm like, why the hell would that make a difference?
I
That's
can't
like saying if you go bowling on your first date, you have a higher percentage of having a relationship than if you go for ice cream. I mean, how can you equate those two things?
There is no, I mean, I don't know the data on this. I know my personal experiences. I know I have quite a few female friends. I think that we are all in that same camp where we believe that if you're talking to somebody and they're interested in you, I mean, it takes you back to the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. I mean, that was just what was expected. And I understand that like women's rights and blah, 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 and feminism and blah, blah, blah. But like there are a lot of us that like it old school, that we would like a man to show enough interest in us to ask us out on that first date so that we don't have to do that.
Well, I will tell you right now, what I would prefer, if that's the case, I would like it to be a federal law that every available, single woman who's interested in dating has to wear a sign that says, I like to be pursued and I want traditional values, or I'm a feminist and don't you dare talk to me unless I talk to you first. Because the problem becomes for men that we are being forced to be mind readers. And it doesn't matter if it's on a dating app or in a bar or anywhere else. I mean, I have approached, I've told the story, I think here on this show, the one time that I approached somebody in a bar and it was at a singles event. So that one was a little less pressure because I knew why she was there. Remember the yellow cup? She was carrying the yellow cup. But I have approached in my dating career over these last 5 years, I've approached two different women in the real world other than that lady. One of them was at a grocery store and one of them was at Home Depot.
Oh, those are some of the best hunting places.
Well,
That's what I hear. I've never had anybody approach me, but I hear those are hot spots.
Well, the lady in the grocery store is wearing a Green Bay Packers jacket. And so I thought, great, we have something in common. I noticed she was not wearing a wedding ring. So I thought, okay, this is great. So I approached her and she was the nicest lady you could think of. But she said, she looked down at her hand like, I'm married. And then she goes, oh, I don't have my ring on. So she, it was a Saturday afternoon or whatever. And, she was nice, but obviously both of us were totally uncomfortable at that point. The other lady, I approached her at Home Depot and she had a bunch of crap in her hand. So she was carrying a bundle of something and I couldn't tell if she had a ring on. And so when I approached her, she got really angry at me for bugging her. She goes, can't I just go shopping without being approached by men?
She must have been so hot to be able to have that response.
She was. But that it shouldn't matter. I mean, the fact that maybe she's just a bitch. I mean, but in reality, you say women like to be pursued. Well, not her.
Right.
Or maybe just not at Home Depot. But how's a guy supposed to know? Let's take that out of Home Depot and put it in a bar. And I know you're always going to tell me it's eye contact stuff, but if you're out with your girlfriends, you guys are all dancing, which by the way, is still a weird thing. Guys don't go out and dance with each other, but
it's true. But then again, guys don't call their friends boyfriends.
It's true. But you're all out dancing together. And a guy wants to meet one of the six of you or whatever it is, you've got a 50-50 shot. She's either going to say, can't you see I'm here with my girlfriends? Or, oh, I'm flattered. Let's talk. But he doesn't have any way of knowing. So you see where I'm saying we have to become mind readers in today's
But what's
world?
the worst thing that can happen? It's the same thing as the 80s and the 90s. What is the worst thing that happens if you approach somebody and they're just not interested?
What's the worst thing that happened if you approach somebody?
Hey, I'm definitely not going to say that it's out of the scope of possibility. And I think that we even got into a story while we were driving. I mean, I have made the first move at a bar in the last, let's say, 6 months, maybe 7 months. I don't remember. I saw a gentleman standing at the bar. He was the best looking guy in the bar. And he was just standing there at the bar holding a beer. And he was watching my friends and I dance. And we were checking him out. And I was like, oh, well, nose goes. So, any one of us would, that just means you go first. Any one of us would have thought he was attractive. We didn't know how old he was. And so I walked over to him right off the dance floor and I approached him and I said, hey, do you want to dance? And he said, I'd love that. And we dated for a few weeks, but I would not have done that if he was younger. He was young and I was not in the market for a relationship with somebody young. And so I would not have done that if that was somebody age appropriate. I would have tried looking at him throughout the evening. I would have tried to let him know I was interested, but I do understand what you're saying because even as I'm saying that, I'm thinking that would be horrible if I did all those things and he never came over and I did go over to him eventually, which wouldn't have happened. And then he wasn't interested. That would probably be hard for my ego. Mm-hmm. So I do understand it from a man's perspective and I do sympathize with that. But somebody somewhere along this road decided that men were going to be the ones to do the asking and women were going to be the ones to do the receiving. And it has made it a lot easier on women. Yes, but I like it a lot.
But again, that's it goes there. Someone decided a long time ago that man's supposed to take off his cape and throw it in a puddle so a woman doesn't have to walk in the water.
Yeah, what's up? I haven't seen that in a while. I'm ready for that.
Yeah, well, if I'm wearing a cape, I'll do that for you.
All right.
Anyway, my point is lots of things that were expected 100 years ago are no longer expected.
But maybe they should be.
I don't disagree, but they aren't.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think this is going to come down to the individual. I mean, the reason things got heated in the car that night is because both you and Adam believe that the woman should jump on board and do some of the asking. And both Nikki and I are of the school, and it's probably, again, my fault because I raised her that way. It has always worked out really well for me to just bide my time and either wait for somebody to ask, or if they never ask, then you just move on to the next person, whether it's the rules, the book, the rules or not.
You know what's so funny about that? Because I think that as a guy, I can only speak for myself. So I'm not going to say that all guys feel this way. I'm just saying, for me, if I decide to take the risk, and whether that risk is walking across the bar and meeting someone or swiping on a dating app and actually chatting with someone, I mean, the bottom line is if once you have a conversation started,
right,
you're trying to figure out how to navigate this conversation and then the talking phase. And I personally believe, and I said I wasn't going to speak for all guys, but I'm going to surmise that most guys feel this way. You're scared to death that you're just going to fuck it up. And so you're sitting there going, well, what's the worst that could happen? They say no. Well, but it's taken a lot of effort and emotion and brass balls to get to the point where you're having this talking phase. So yeah, what's the worst that can happen? Well, you've wasted hours, you've wasted days, you've wasted emotion, you've wasted, whatever. And so, yeah, it just sucks, especially if I say, hey, this looks like somebody who would appreciate me pursuing her, or whatever you said earlier.
Right. Well, I mean, and I know it's not that clear on your end because probably there are a lot of women like me that are just having the conversation and asking the questions and answering the questions and just waiting for somebody to ask us out. But I would like to believe that if I'm having a conversation with somebody or if somebody else is, and they're just not feeling it with that person, that they're going to stop replying. I mean, that's kind of the history of dating apps, which is where we are today. In 2024, most people are meeting on dating apps more than organically. And so, Nikki and Adam did happen to meet on a dating app, and they matched, they chatted, he asked her out. They went on a short first date. She came home right away and said, I really like this guy. I hope he asks me out again. They chatted for a little while longer. He asked her out on a second date. I think that date was like 3 or 4 hours long. They went to a bunch of different bars, had a great time. I'm positive that the night ended in a kiss. And, things just evolved naturally between them. And I kind of feel like that's the way things are meant to be. And yes, that might make me archaic, but I just like it. I just like the way things were. And so I've stayed there, and it's working out it has always worked out really well for me. Not making the first move.
Well, let's just close this out this way then, because we're never going to agree on it, because it's not that I think that men shouldn't ask women out. I just think that women should feel free to ask men out as well. That's all.
I agree with you that like that night in the bar, for whatever reason, I did go up and I did talk to him. I am not telling you that I have never been the one to say, do you want to get together? Because I was tired of the talking phase and they hadn't asked yet. And yes, I have met a number of those people, but I have not ended up in a relationship with any of them.
Right. Well, because you like you said before, the chances are much lower if the man doesn't ask for some crazy reason.
I don't know why that is either.
Yeah.
But it is what it is in my book. But for those of you guys that are listening out there, I would not tell you to not ask. I'm just telling you that sometimes I find that men still like the chase in 2024.
Well, and again, I'm glad you said that, because that's how I was going to close this out. Some men hate the chase. I just want to be with someone who wants to be with me and is willing to say it just as much as I'm supposed to be saying it. I mean, to me, this is all about game playing. This sounds like we're playing games.
But are you talking about dating now or relationships?
Either way.
Because I don't disagree with you.
Because as far as I'm concerned, if the game of, he needs to ask me, not me, not the other way around, well, that's a game at this point.
Right. No, it is a game. 100%. I think it's always been considered a game. But
yeah,
I do.
And if we're going to play games like that before the relationship, they're probably going to continue during the relationship.
I don't know. I have outgrown the need to play those games. Do I play a little hard to get? Yes. But in a relationship, maybe it's a game, or maybe it's just what I know and what I'm comfortable with. And it never feels like a game. It just feels like if they wanted to, they would. And I've really fallen into that statement. It applies to my relationships today. Once you're in a relationship, though, I highly recommend that there are no rules and there are no games, and say what you want or you're not going to get it.
Period. Yeah, and I just don't think that that's possible to turn that on and off like that.
Well, sometimes there's living proof that you're wrong, but
we'll
I don't know.
Okay. Well, with that, I mean, I think we're going to agree to disagree a little bit on that. But at the same time, guys, those of you out there, I would be very interested when you write your cool reviews and your comments. What do you guys think? Should women ask men out? I'd be very interested in, are you on Team Pam or Team Tom on this one?
And send us an email. Listen, if you've had a situation like this, send us your emails, because, I like follow-up emails on stories. Tell me that you made the first move if you're a woman and that you are happily ever after with the man that you chased, or tell me that you don't do that and it's working out just fine for you.
Excellent. Okay. With that, I think we're going to get to a totally cool email that you are ready with.
You've got mail.
I still really love that. All right. So here we go. Dear Pam and Tom, I met a great guy on a dating app, but he lives in another state. My first inclination was to not get involved, but after weeks of talking, I really, really like him. I've heard Pam on TikTok talk about the fact that she is in a long distance relationship and really happy. So I thought I'd get some advice from you both. I've been talking to him for about a month now, and he's not super motivated to travel so that we can meet in person. He replied that when he visits, he plans to stay at my house. We've got our first meeting planned for next month, finally, and I'm really nervous, which I can totally understand.
Wow.
Does staying at my house mean that he expects me to sleep with him?
Yes.
Maybe. It's hard to know what chemistry will be like based on phone calls. Any advice you can give me to help me decide if I should move forward or break it off is much appreciated. Thanks in advance. Nervous AF.
Nervous AF.
Well, I've talked to Tom multiple times about the fact that before I met somebody long distance, I was very nervous. And so I certainly can relate to this email and to her having nerves and being nervous about what the expectations are if they have not discussed what the expectations are, which it sounds like they have not.
Well, here, I got a couple of questions that obviously you can't answer, but for Nervous AF, these are questions for you. Why, if you were so worried about long distance, did your profile allow him to show up on your profile? Or when he swiped on you, why did you swipe back? I mean, if you're not comfortable, don't swipe back. That to me is such a simple concept.
No, and that is a simple concept. So I know that there are multiple dating apps. Facebook dating is one of them, where no matter what you put the limitation on as far as how far the distance can be, when I was on Facebook dating, I got more likes from men out of state than I ever did in
Wait,
state.
Facebook has a dating app?
Oh,
Facebook has a dating app, yes.
What?
It's not available everywhere, but
and it's terrible. I think it is scraping the bottom of the barrel. I don't think I've met one person on Facebook dating, but I know people who have. Yes, I know people who have. So maybe it's just bad for me. But with that said, I think that, the fact that on Facebook dating, you can like somebody and it doesn't have to be like a swipe right situation. You can just send a like. So I don't know what app she met on, but let's assume it's that one, because she clearly, I don't know. She didn't say she was against long distance dating, did she, from the very beginning?
No, but she's nervous as hell. And
what's wrong with that? What's wrong with being nervous?
She said, my first inclination was to not get involved.
Right. God, she's speaking my language. I can totally understand that. I mean, I don't think that anybody's life goal is to end up in a relationship with somebody that lives in another state. But sometimes you meet somebody and it just clicks and you decide that you're not going to let their location stop you from getting to know them. But it doesn't take away the nerves of getting to know them.
Well, my question is, why did you match with him in the first place, Nervous AF? I mean, yes, he can click on you, but you don't have to swipe back or like back.
Right. So I'm just going to play her part, because clearly I have been in this situation and possibly am currently in a situation that stemmed from a situation like this, where sometimes you just are in the mood to have a conversation. You're playing the field. For whatever reason, something about this person really appeals to her. And so she decided to look past the distance and get to know him, even though it was probably on her red flag list. She looked past distance, got to know him. And so let's give her a little bit of a break here. She opened the door, he walked through it, and now they have moved on to the first meeting, and she's nervous.
Well, but then she said that he's not motivated to travel, which, by the way, what the hell? As far as I'm concerned, both parties need to be willing to travel.
Yeah,
because otherwise they're just not into you.
That's a problem. I mean, although I think that he was probably biding his time. 4 weeks is not that long. So, maybe he wanted to make sure that he really felt something with her before he invested in a long distance relationship. Some people do that just for fun. I have friends that are dating people that live in other states or other cities or a couple hours away. They don't want anything serious, but they're enjoying what that offers. So it's possible.
It's so foreign to me. Like, if dating just for fun, they're not looking for anything, then why the hell are they dating? Again, we've talked about this before. Part of my internal workings is, if you're dating with an intent. And I know that sometimes that intent is just to
have sex,
get laid, whatever. But for me, it was always long-term relationship. That's every date I went on was potentially my last first date.
And I love that. Obviously, I've had experiences where I dated somebody even though I knew it wasn't going to be a long-term relationship. So sometimes there are other things that come to play, whether it's companionship or you enjoy somebody's company, but you just don't have enough in common to make that long-term investment, but you're dating other people. So you're not cutting yourself off from possibilities just because you are dating more than one person. I think most people right now that are not in a serious relationship are dating more than one person in an effort to find their person and to figure out who that is.
Sure.
Especially if the person is out of state. This guy lives out of state. He's finally decided that he really wants to meet her. So things are going well on the phone. So the fact that he wants to stay at our house, to me, I don't know, that's a little bit of a red flag because it seems to make her uncomfortable. So maybe he can't afford to stay at a hotel. I don't know what the situation is. If I'm meeting somebody and it's a long distance thing, they're not going to stay at my house before I've met them in person. That's a little scary to me. And I'm not trying to talk her out of it. She might feel completely comfortable that he's not going to hurt her, but at the same time, she hasn't had a conversation about what this means, what this weekend together means. If she's saying, does he expect me to sleep with him? Well, if you've told him you're not going to, then he doesn't expect it. And if you've told him you're not sure, then he doesn't know what to expect. So, I feel like I would certainly never meet anybody from another state without them knowing that I'm not sure. At the very least, I'm not sure.
Well, again, I look at her and I'm probably coming down on nervous AF a little bit more than I should, but at the same time, if he is not motivated to travel, he's just not that into you. I'm sorry to say it that bluntly. If he implied, that's the way she wrote it, he's implied that he's staying at my house, it's your fucking house.
Right.
He shouldn't imply anything. You dictate who sleeps in your house and which bed they sleep in, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, in my opinion, it's your house. Either you invite him over or he doesn't stay there, period. And by the way, and you have your boyfriend or whatever you're calling him, your situation hood,
situation shit.
whatever he's called in this situation, have him listen to this show. The bottom line is, dude, first off, if you're implying that you're sleeping at her house, well, maybe you should just say, should I get a hotel or do you have a guest bedroom? I mean,
I'm getting the feeling we're past that because he must have said, oh, you have room for me or something. And she didn't say no because
he's implied.
Right.
That's it. He hasn't asked. He hasn't stated. He's implied.
But even in 2024, when I think a man should ask a woman out on a first date, I think a woman should say, no, you're not fucking staying at my house if she doesn't feel comfortable with that. I mean,
totally agree.
I hope I haven't given the impression to people that just because I'm old school in some ways that I'm like a welcoming doormat, like whatever you want, you want to stay at my house, you want to stay in my bed. No, I would never handle this that way. I would have had a big conversation about what this visit entails. It's a get to know you. It's a first meeting, you know.
And by the way, like I said, as you were reading her email, if he is staying at your house, he is expecting sex.
Right. I mean, I'm positive he's, did she say where he's coming from? No. So we don't know, maybe he's flying into town. I don't know how he's getting to her house. But yeah, he's probably made an investment in this travel. And so he probably is expecting sex if you haven't told him that you're not sure. So I think that this is kind of a simple, well, it's probably not that simple, but I definitely think that before he gets there, you need to say, I don't know if I'm ready for us to jump into bed together. So, if she's fine with him staying at her house, then that's great. If she has a guest room, then that's great. Definitely make sure that your friends and family know that you have a virtual stranger coming to your house for a weekend. I would be concerned with that, but I'm a hypocrite because I have talked to, I am in a long distance relationship and I didn't know where he was staying the first time he came into town. And I offered my guest room and he was like, no, I'm going to get a hotel. But I felt completely safe and comfortable having him stay at my house. So am I an idiot? Maybe a little bit. He stayed at my house multiple times since then. I'm still here to tell the story. So it worked out okay. But, when I'm giving somebody else advice, I also did a lot of things in the 80s that I can't believe I'm still alive. So.
Well, and the thing is interesting as I was listening to that email, I couldn't help but remember 2 or 3 episodes ago, we were talking about one of your 6.3 million reality shows that you watch.
6.3.
The British
Love is Blind UK.
Yes, that, where they've developed such chemistry without seeing each other.
Yeah.
These two, I'm assuming they've at least seen pictures of each other, and they've probably done FaceTime or some sort of video call. I mean,
hope
they've
so.
already had more visual confirmation of each other probably than your British people do.
But those people are extremely background checked for that show.
Well, I'm not talking about fear. I'm of being murdered.
Oh,
I'm talking about.
That's...
I know. I'm talking about fear of meeting someone and not having chemistry. Those people, they've never seen each other yet. You told me that they're getting engaged without ever seeing each other, which is fucking crazy. And these people she's like, I've never met him. Should I even meet him? Kind of a question. In fact, that's what she said. Should I break it off?
I think she's panicking, and I appreciate the fact that she reached out to me, because, you know, I've made multiple TikToks about the fact that I'm in a long distance relationship. People have very strong feelings about that, whether it's pros or cons or whatever. I hope she didn't decide to go into this because of me. My situation is definitely not a dating app situation. And I did know that person. I do know that person, you know, outside of a screen on my phone. So I hope that she has vetted him a little bit, gotten to know him, FaceTime, all of those things. But you know, I wasn't sure what to expect on the first visit. I don't know. I don't know how I felt about whether I was open to it leading to a sexual destination, so to speak. I don't know. You know, I was nervous AF. So that's the most relatable part about her email to me, is she's gotten herself into the situation. She likes him. Let me tell you, it's really fucking hard to meet somebody on any dating app. So she has eliminated something that she probably didn't think she would do, and now she's open to it, and she's really nervous. And so my final advice is, tell him how you feel. Let him know you're really nervous. Let him know that you're not sure romantically whether there will be chemistry there or not. He may very well decide not to come when you say that. And you need to be okay with that, because if he's coming just for sex and you're not there, he may not come at all. No pun intended.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
Sorry. How many times can you say he may not come? Yeah. But you know, if you really like him, maybe he will.
I'm going to piggyback on that and say this. And I know that we've had this conversation on here before, that I don't understand nervousness. It's just not part of my genes.
I hate that.
I don't have the nervous gene. So I have a hard time understanding or empathizing with that. But especially when she literally has 100% control of the entire situation.
Unless he's much bigger than her.
Well, it doesn't even matter. How does he even know her address? If she's given him her address, I mean, sure, her city, but I know you live in Raleigh, but if you hadn't actually given me your address to come over and visit you, whatever that was a few months ago, the first time we met in person, I would have never known where you lived. Never.
Right. But I'm positive she gave him her address. It's
already.
It just sounds to me like it's already been planned. But I don't think he's going to show up if she changes her mind just because he has her address.
See, and I disagree. Well, and by the way, shame on you, nervous AF, if you've already given him your address and you're fucking this nervous. The bottom line is she has control of it. She can control if he knows where she lives. She can control if he stays in her house. She can control if they have sex. She is in 100% control of this entire situation. There's literally no excuse for her to be nervous, in my opinion.
Okay, well, I'm going to go on record strongly disagreeing. I think that we get nervous. It doesn't mean that we are... I think nerves and excitement are all one big ball. I think that like nervous AF is how I felt, but it was all rolled up into being very excited and very hopeful that there would be chemistry. And also the fact that you can talk to somebody on your phone, you can do FaceTimes, you can really think that you're attracted to that person, and you're still talking to a two-dimensional person. Until you are standing in front of that person, I don't think you are guaranteed that you or the other person is going to know for sure whether it's a match or not. It's
Well,
really
that
not much
really
different.
fucks up with your British baking show or whatever it is.
Well, that's an experiment that often goes sideways. But yes, I mean, but you're right. They haven't seen each other, but they signed on for that. How many people do you know
So
that are
is
going to?
she. So is
Right,
Nervous
but
AF.
but she has seen him. I don't know very many people who would sign on for Love is Blind. I'm not going to put
Well, yeah, I think you're giving her a lot more credit based on what little information we have.
I'm giving her credit because I'm internalizing what she's feeling and I'm comparing it to my situation and my relationship and how I felt. And it's very relatable to me to be very nervous, but still want something.
Yeah. Oh, again, it's like the reason that I think you're giving her a little bit more credit than you should is because her email gave specific reasons that she's nervous.
Yes.
And those are the reasons that she has complete control of every one of those things that are making her nervous. I understand her excitement. That's different. Fine.
Okay,
Be
well,
excited all you want, but if you're nervous, it's because you don't control the situation, even though you have complete control of the situation.
and I don't know if we've helped her or not, but hopefully anybody listening to this podcast that is dabbling in long distance relationships, I'm here to tell you that they are not a bad thing. And it's okay to be nervous about them. And it's also okay to be open to those.
Yeah, but just control it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and you made a good point. Don't give out your address unless you're positive you want that person to come to town. And tell them where they're going to sleep, whether it's in your guest room or at a hotel. These aren't things that you should be worried about after you've made plans.
Or set up a fucking tent in your backyard or something. Whatever.
Yes, do have a conversation.
Yes.
And with that said, thank you guys so much for sending in your emails. Hopefully hopefully Tom's not too rough on you. I know that I kill them with kindness is kind of my MO, unless I just can't do that. But this was kind of an easy email for me because she was asking for my opinion and I am in the situation. So hopefully we have helped. And hopefully we've helped somebody else out there too. Please keep sending us your emails. The address is talkingphase@gmail.com. We love hearing from you. As you know, I read every single one of these emails, probably how I wound up picking this one. And then I send the winners over to Tom, and then I usually let him make the final selection, but we love them. So please keep sending them and we will keep reading them.
Absolutely. And with that, thank you everybody for listening. I know I've already said it once during the show, but I'm going to ask again. Please it takes 5 seconds. Give us a quick 5-star rating. Write a couple of words in the review section. Tell us if you think that I'm being too harsh on Nervous AF, or if you think that men should be given a break and that women should take it's the woman's turn to ask us out. Okay. And then share this podcast with your friends and family. We do this every single Friday morning about 8:00. Again, unless I screw things up, which I have done a couple of times recently.
But they do show up eventually.
They do show up. So, better late than never. Be sure to follow us, not just here on whatever platform you're using right now, but we also are very active on TikTok under Talking Phase Podcast. We also have a great Facebook page and an Instagram page that Pam manages. I think that's it. So
No, you forgot YouTube. And I feel like
they might be watching this on YouTube. So yes, YouTube is another place.
You can watch us when we put our fists up and we beat each other. Virtually.
Right. Exactly.
You can watch that on YouTube. I love the comments we get over on the YouTube page.
Absolutely. So until next Friday, this is Pam and Tom. We're signing off.
Have a great day, week, month, trip to Europe.